Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 195 of A Year of Change. We are quickly getting bleh. Look at that, first sentence out, already fucked it up. We are quickly getting to our 200th day, and I just realized that now. I don't know why I haven't been paying attention for very long, but I'm realizing that, yes, we have 5 days left, and then we're at our 200th day. I should probably say that for tomorrow. But I'm not going to, because I just noticed it now. Anyway, not starting today. Today, I have tried this 2 or 3 times already, and I just keep screwing things up over and over and over. I fumble over my words, I'm saying the wrong thing, and then I just stop and go, So, this is it. Enjoy this one, because this is the version that you're getting. Today's documentary is actually one, it's done by a TV show that we've shown before. A few months ago, I showed you a documentary called The War on Wheat, and it was done by the Fifth Estate. And the Fifth Estate is a show that we have here in Canada that has been on forever. And it's a lot like 60 Minutes, in that it's more of a news, kind of entertaining program. I guess I don't know what the official term would be, but it's a news program. But not exactly, just current events and things like that. It's documentaries like this. And if you've seen the wheat one, then you know pretty much what to expect from this. The one that I'm showing today, though, that's going to be going in the playlist, is actually one that they did a couple of years ago when they started, I think it was their 500th season, however long they've been around. And it's called The Secrets of Sugar. And basically what they do, they start out by sort of touching on the same things that we've been doing this week, with the basics, showing that 4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon, talking about the nutrition labels, how there's no percentage value on there. And then they just sort of do the same information gathering that we've been doing, finding out the different names of sugar and how they're packaged, how they're labeled on ingredients lists and things like that. But of course, they have many more resources than I do, so they do go a little bit deeper. And they speak with spokespeople from different food companies, and because these are the ones that have really sort of lobbied hard to keep that percentage off the nutrition label. They talk to sugar lobbyists and everything else. They talk to dietitians and doctors. They do use the word nutritionist at one point, which kind of bugs me. But they do talk to a doctor that... I'm not really an alarmist when it comes to stuff like this. I always find that when you are dealing with something like this, and they did the same thing with the war on wheat, and it's not really, I don't want to say that it's on the onus of the producer to curb this, because they are getting the information, they are showing it as it's being presented. But they do interview a doctor who does really, he's dedicated a lot of his time to sort of stamping out sugar and showing exactly how bad it is for our health and the health problems that are associated with it. And it's one thing to say, okay, and they do actually show this in a graph. They say, well, here's the line of how much sugar we're eating. Here is the line of heart disease and diabetes and obesity. They do follow a pattern. As sugar levels rise, obviously they go up as well. But he does refer to it as a poison, which, if you're looking at a strict definition, it's something that does make you sick, then yes, I can understand that. But he does go out of his way to say it's not hyperbole, and I think, yes, it kind of is. Obviously, he's a doctor. He's going to know probably more than we do. But it's that alarmist presentation that I'm really not a big fan of. Because I think, there are certain things that we've looked at and said, okay, we can have this in moderation. We know, for example, picking healthy fats over bad fats. So fat in general isn't really bad. For sodium, we know that we need to lower that because it's not healthy having it too high, but we still do need some. Sugar is a little bit different because we don't really need it for anything. Aside from energy, it either goes into energy or fat, which is used for energy later. But there's really not a lot of nutritional value to it, other than that quick burst of energy. So it's not something that we can really say, well, yes, but we need a certain amount in moderation. But keeping that in mind as well, we've talked about this throughout the week, and they show this in the documentary as well, that there really is no in moderation for us anymore when it comes to sugar. It's a little different because you can control the sodium in your food fairly easily. I've cut way back on the amount of salt that I put on my food, so it's just really a matter of looking at the sodium levels. Same thing with fat, we can make those decisions, but with sugar, because it's sort of snuck into our food over a very long time and it's just become part of, the whole food processing process, that it's really difficult to just say, okay, well, we're going to cut it out because it's in absolutely everything. And that's one thing they do touch on as well. They take a family and they say, good enough, we're going to cut out your sugar. And they just sort of show them exactly how much sugar they eat in the run of a week and then try to cut back on the amount. And it does. It has health benefits, obviously. In a very short amount of time, they do notice it. But the... Sorry. Almost screamed right in your ear, which I kind of did anyway. But getting back to this doctor, there is that sort of alarmist approach that he has, saying we're eating too much of it, it's making us sick, it's costing us millions of dollars in healthcare bills, and he is right. That's the problem, is that his information isn't wrong. It's just the presentation itself, I think, is a little melodramatic. And I think it may be just because they've cut it in that way. But, again, it's really difficult to sort of defend the other side of it because there isn't really anything that you can say, well, we need sugar for this and this and this. We get more than enough from just regular food, even whole foods that we've been eating more of. We don't really need any added sugar in there. And when they go into this and they show you exactly how much the average person is eating in sugar just on a yearly basis, I mean, we're eating, I think they said the equivalent of 20 bags of sugar a year each. Just in added sugar from foods. This is before we're putting it in our coffee, before we're putting it on our foods. This is just stuff that's in our food anyway. Well, actually, no, it might be including the stuff that we put on there ourselves. It may. Anyway. 20 bags of sugar a year. If someone just was to put that in front, 20 bags of anything, they said, here we go, here's 20 bags of, pick something. I was going to say oats, but even that sounds like a lot, because it's still healthy for you. But if someone said, here's 20 bags of oats, here's how much you've eaten in a year, it's still impressive, whether it's good or bad. So when you're looking at it and thinking, it's just, there's nothing to it. It does, it sort of stands out. And they do touch on as well that people say, well, they're just empty calories. And I think that's what the problem is. But there are empty calories in quite a few things. But apparently, apparently. That's always a dangerous word. When you say apparently, it's like one step up from saying, I heard one time from this drunk guy. But the doctor goes into this as well and says, well, there's empty calories, but yes, there are empty calories, but there are a whole host of problems that go along with that. And he goes into liver disease and, the obesity epidemic, which is kind of, again, one of those cliches, but it's true. It's sweeping the nation. Sounds like a boy band. It's sweeping the nation. Or a janitor. A really big janitor. Or a boy band. Those two comparisons match. It's fine. Anyway, the documentary itself is very well presented. It does go into a lot more detail of the stuff that we've been looking at throughout this week. And you can sort of take away what you need from it. There's, I think the thing that really sort of stands out is the spokesperson for, I think it's General Mills. And when they're going through and they're interviewing her and they're trying to say, there's two sides to it that I'm a big advocate for, it's our responsibility. We're the ones that are eating the food. We're the ones that are going out and buying it. And we're doing it now when we are actually taking the onus upon ourselves to, look at the amount of sugar that's in food and say, okay, good enough. I know that this is now 3 teaspoons. That gives us a rough idea as to how much is in there. That responsibility, almost bugger that one up. That responsibility does fall on us. How many of us have done that before? That we've said, well, we need to take a look at this and see how much that we're eating. So there is the argument there that, yes, food companies and the nutrition labels should be putting something on there saying, here's exactly how much is in there. Whether it's saying, if it says 8 grams, then it brackets 2 teaspoons, or 8 grams and then 400% of what your intake should be. There is that argument as well. And when they're talking to the spokesperson from, I think General Mills, and then there's two others. Pillsbury? I don't know. Anyway. And you can tell that there is that desire for that person to say, well, this isn't our responsibility. You know, we've put labels on there. But when they keep pressing and things get really sort of shady and then they stop answering questions, that's when things really sort of get sketchy. When you're looking at a documentary like this and you're seeing an interview where the person being interviewed now is at a loss because they can't defend it anymore reasonably. They can't put anything out there that says, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. That's when you sort of start questioning things. And that's when they sort of go into the lobbyists and showing exactly how much pressure has been put on, food labels to say just they fought so hard to keep that, that number off. So that's when things sort of go downhill and you're starting to watch and going, this is a little shady. So, like I say, I'm not really an alarmist when it comes to stuff like this, but it's really hard to argue against the information that's in this. And it's something that's readily available. You can fact find on your own, you can confirm all this information. And granted, it is, in this particular situation, it is one doctor saying it the same way that the doctor who did Wheat Belly. But, I mean, he's been proven wrong. We know this. He has been flat out, unequivocally proven that he is wrong. He has made up information. He has lied. He has done a whole slew of shit. But people still believe him. This doctor, however, his opinion is shared by a lot of the medical community. And that's the thing, that they know that more than the fat, more than the sodium, sugar really is sort of the root of a lot of issues. From obesity to liver disease, heart disease, diabetes, obviously. And this is something that we kind of know anyway, that sugar, everyone knows always sugar's bad for you. I mean, we know that. We've known that since we were kids. We've been told that since we were kids. But it tastes great. This is why we like it. It's part of the appeal of all these foods that have it in there. And earlier on in the week, we talked about, I couldn't quite remember the term for it. It's bliss point is the actual term. And they do touch on that as well, where they say, there's a certain point where there's not quite enough sugar, and then there's a point where there's too much sugar. And what food companies do is they try to find that exact point that is just perfect. That is not too much, not too little, and that people are going to like it the most. And that's when they mix in different fats and different sugars and things like that. And that's where they, that's how they sell their product. And part of that, again, there's that two sides of the argument where on one side you think that's their job. Not just candy companies. I mean, candy, you're buying simply just packaged sugar in with different colors and flavors and things like that. We know that going in. We know that if we're going to go buy jujubes, for example, that each one is it's pure sugar. That's all it is. We know this. It's when you get into things like health foods, things that are considered to be, oh, well, this is going to be low fat. And those are those little sneaky things that they sort of poke in there. Those are the ones that I find are concerning, because that's when you start realizing that it's not just saying, well, no, it's, sugar is fine in moderation, because it's just in absolutely everything, and things that you don't even think should have sugar in them, and it's still jam-packed. We talked about this before. The cereal that I buy has got 2 teaspoons in 3/4 of a cup. Every single time I've been having that, I've been having 2 teaspoons of sugar on top of it. So I'm gradually starting to mix in oats and things like that with it, and sort of weaning myself off that. But again, not to be an alarmist, it's not one of those things that we're going to have to cut out sugar entirely, immediately. Yes, it's going to be much healthier for us if we cut back, but when you look at things practically, sugar still tastes good. I'm still going to have it in my coffee. I used to get 3 cream and 5 sugar in a medium coffee, so that big. To give you an idea, I'm down to 1. And that's not just because of what we've been doing here. It's just gradually I've been cutting back because it was like drinking syrup. It was really bad. So making those little changes over time, that's where we want to get to. Not just a matter of saying, well, I'm not having any sugar in my cereal, and I'm having sugar-free this and sugar-free that, and adding in artificial sweeteners, and then, using honey for this because we talked about that's the exact same thing. We do get enough sugar in our diet that we don't need any extra. But every now and then, it's kind of nice to have it. So it's not going to kill us, but we do need to cut way back on the amount that we're eating because, unfortunately, that is killing us. But this, I think, is going to be the hardest part for a lot of us. For me, it's going to be sodium. That's always going to be the rough spot for me. Just trying to get it down to a proper level. Fat, I don't think is going to be too much of a hard thing for us because aside from indulging in junk food like cheese and nachos and all the other good stuff, aside from stuff like that, we have been adding in so many other foods that we probably are at a fairly good point. But sugar is a little bit different because it's in everything that we eat, and for a lot of us, that is where we go when we get depressed, or we get angry, or we get disappointed, or those emotional triggers that cause us to eat. Really, that's where it's going to focus on, I think, for a lot of us, is sugar. And I've done the same thing, where, very few of us are obese because we're hungry. There is that emotional connection there. And unfortunately, it tends to go to sugar. And there are reasons for that we're going to be touching on throughout the next few weeks as we go through that. But there's a reason why we gravitate towards sugar more than anything else. And for some of us, chips are there as well. But it's a different feeling that you get than when you're having an ice cream. So, but that's for another week. But for right now, go up, take a look at this one. I think it's very informative. There is that sort of dramatic flair to it, but it is a news program, and just like 60 Minutes, they've got to add something in there to keep people watching. So take the information as it's presented. Any information that you're looking for, you can actually confirm. It's not the same as the wheat thing, where everyone is saying, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and one person saying, no, I'm not, I'm right, and then they find out, no, you're a lying sack of shit. This is actually shared pretty much across the board by medical professionals, that we simply are just eating too much sugar all the time in absolutely everything, and it's slowly but surely making us sick and killing us. So anyway, it's very informative, very entertaining, and because it's presented by the Fifth Estate, there's a little more credence to it, because it's not the same as watching an entertainment program or just any other documentary where they need to make it melodramatic in order to sell copies of it. They've been around for decades, and they're a well-respected, what would you call them? I guess journalistic news program, just like 60 Minutes. So it's something that I feel comfortable putting up there and standing behind and going, you know what, this is a good source of information for us. So go up, take a look. I think you'll enjoy it. It's going to just sort of what was I going to say? Retouch? That doesn't make any sense. No, it's not. It's going to revisit a lot of the topics that we talked about so far this week, and it's going to introduce a few things we're going to talk about later on as well. So we'll take the next 2 or 3 weeks and gradually cut back on what we do. But for right now, I'm going to leave this video here, so thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. In the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.